Lord Krishna continued advising Arjuna, don't assume that generals like Duryodhana and Karna will believe you left the battlefield out of kindness for your family. They'll think it's out of fear for your own life, tarnishing your reputation. Your enemies will criticize you harshly, causing you great pain. Initially surprised by Arjuna's plea for compassion, Krishna criticized it as unfitting for someone of noble descent. Now, he has substantiated his arguments against Arjuna's so-called compassion. Krishna told Arjuna, either you'll die in battle and go to the heavens or win and rule the earthly kingdom. So, muster your courage and fight. Victory is uncertain, but even if you die, you'll reach heavenly realms. Fight without worrying about happiness, distress, gain, or loss. This way, you won't face any consequences. Krishna explicitly states that Arjuna should fight for the sake of the battle because he desires it. In Krishna consciousness, actions are performed solely for Krishna, transcending considerations of joy, sorrow, profit, or loss. Those acting for personal pleasure, whether in goodness or passion, face reactions. However, one surrendered to Krishna consciousness is no longer bound or indebted to anyone, breaking free from the usual obligations of worldly duties. So far, I've explained this knowledge to you using analysis. Now, let me break it down in simpler terms, talking about working without expecting rewards. When you act with this understanding, you can liberate yourself from the burden of your actions. The term Sankhya means detailed descriptions, while Sankhya philosophy is about understanding the true nature of the soul. Arjuna wanted to stop fighting, thinking that avoiding harm to his family would bring him more happiness than ruling the kingdom. However, both ways were driven by personal satisfaction, ignoring wisdom and duty. Krishna wanted to clarify that killing the body doesn't kill the eternal soul. All individuals, including the Lord, are eternal souls that change bodies but retain their individuality even after liberation from material ties. This concept, explained by Lord Krishna, is called Sankhya, not to be confused with the atheistic Sankhya philosophy. Arjuna has already accepted Krishna as his spiritual guide by surrendering to him. Now, Krishna will explain the process of working with spiritual intelligence, known as Buddha Yoga or Karma Yoga. This involves practicing devotional service solely for the satisfaction of the Lord. It's a direct connection with the Lord through love, achievable through devotional service. Buddha Yoga mentioned here is the devotional service to the Lord, and it's different from the atheistic Sankhya Yoga, presented by the impostor Kapila. One must not confuse the two. Real Sankhya philosophy, as explained by Lord Kapila, is the same as Lord Krishna's Sankhya, both emphasizing devotional service. In essence, Krishna explains that working in Krishna consciousness, solely for the satisfaction of the Lord, leads to transcendental bliss and understanding. This is different from working for personal gain or happiness. Buddha Yoga is the quality of work performed in Krishna consciousness. Engaging in activities for the benefit of Krishna without expecting personal pleasure is the highest form of work. Even a small start in such actions faces no obstacles, and its effects are permanent, even if not completed. Unlike material work, which must be finished, Krishna-conscious work always leaves a lasting impact. For instance, if someone starts working for Krishna but can't finish, they still gain, as Krishna-conscious efforts are never wasted. Even 1% effort in Krishna consciousness has lasting results. This is different from material activities where incomplete work brings no profit. As they say, what good is gaining the whole world if you lose your eternal soul? Material activities end with the body, but Krishna-conscious work brings one back to Krishna even after death. It assures a chance to be born again as a human, with opportunities for further elevation. This unique quality of Krishna-conscious work is resolute and focused, while indecisive minds are scattered in many directions. Having unwavering faith in Krishna consciousness for life's highest perfection is called Vivasayatmaka intelligence. When engaged in Krishna consciousness, one is free from obligations to family, society, or nationality. Actions in Krishna consciousness transcend dualities like good and bad. The pinnacle of Krishna consciousness is renouncing the material way of life, achieved automatically through progressive Krishna consciousness. A person with a determined purpose in Krishna consciousness is knowledgeable. Understanding that Krishna is the root of all causes, their actions benefit everyone, from themselves to society and beyond. Practicing Krishna consciousness is best under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master who represents Krishna. Following the spiritual master's instructions is crucial, and it's considered a life mission. Perfect knowledge of the soul, going beyond the body's conception, is essential for the process. Without this understanding, one may be distracted by various fruitive activities if the mind isn't firmly fixed. People with limited understanding are drawn to the attractive words of the Vedas, which suggest various actions for gaining heavenly pleasures, good birth, power, and the like. These individuals, driven by a desire for sensory enjoyment and a luxurious life, believe that nothing beyond this exists. Due to their lack of intelligence and ignorance, they are particularly attracted to the ritualistic actions recommended in the Vedas, especially those related to gaining enjoyment in heavenly realms. These rituals often involve sacrifices, like the Jyotish Toma, believed to secure a place in heavenly planets. Many wrongly assume that the sole purpose of Vedic wisdom is to perform such sacrifices for heavenly enjoyment. For those with little knowledge, embracing the determined action of Krishna consciousness becomes challenging. Similar to how fools are drawn to the flowers of poisonous trees without understanding the consequences, these uninformed individuals are attracted to heavenly opulence and the associated sensory pleasures. In the Vedic Karmakanda section, it is mentioned that those who undertake specific penances become eligible to drink somarosa, a beverage believed to grant immortality and everlasting happiness. Some individuals on earth are eager to obtain somarosa to enhance their strength and enjoy sensory pleasures. They lack faith in liberation from material bondage and are deeply attached to elaborate Vedic ceremonies, especially those related to sacrifices. These people are generally sensual, prioritizing the temporary pleasures of the material world, particularly the delights of heavenly realms. People who are overly focused on enjoying their senses and accumulating material wealth are unable to develop a strong commitment to serving the Supreme Lord. Samadhi means having a fixed mind. According to the Vedic dictionary Nirukti, when the mind is focused on understanding the self, it is considered to be in samadhi. However, achieving samadhi is not possible for those who are only interested in enjoying their senses or are confused by temporary things. Such individuals are somewhat condemned by the influence of material energy. The Vedas mainly discuss the three modes of material nature. Arjuna, aim to rise above these modes, be free from dualities, and establish yourself in the self. Material activities, driven by the desire for results, bind us to the material world. The Vedas focus on these activities to guide people from seeking pleasure in the senses to a higher, transcendental plane. Arjuna is advised to elevate himself to the transcendental position of Vedanta philosophy, where one seeks to understand the supreme transcendence. As long as the material body exists, actions and reactions in the material modes persist. Tolerance toward dualities, like happiness and distress, is key to overcoming anxieties about gain and loss. This transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness, where one relies entirely on the goodwill of Krishna. The analogy is given that just as all purposes served by a small well can be served by a great reservoir of water, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served by one who understands their true purpose. Arjuna is reminded of the ultimate goal of the Vedas, to know Lord Krishna, the primeval cause of everything. The living entity's relationship with Krishna is the highest perfection of Vedic knowledge. However, chanting the holy name of the Lord is considered the best way to achieve this in the present age. It is emphasized that the purpose of Vedic culture is served by inoffensively chanting the holy name of the Lord. In the last verses, Arjuna is reminded of his right to perform his prescribed duties but is cautioned not to be attached to the results. Attachment to results makes one the cause of action and leads to bondage. Acting without attachment to the results of prescribed duties is the path to liberation. Arjuna is advised to fight as a matter of duty without attachment, as non-participation in duty also signifies attachment and doesn't lead to salvation. Krishna advises Arjuna to perform his duty without attachment to success or failure. This balanced state is called yoga, where the mind is focused on the Supreme by controlling the senses. In this context, the Supreme is Lord Krishna himself. Arjuna is encouraged to act according to Krishna's guidance, letting go of attachment to outcomes. Yoga, in its true sense, is the concentration of the mind on the Supreme. Arjuna, being a warrior, is part of the Varnashrama Dharma system, where the ultimate goal is to satisfy Lord Vishnu or Krishna. The instruction indirectly implies that Arjuna should act in alignment with Krishna's guidance. The essence is to surrender to the Lord and engage in devotional service. Those who desire the fruits of their work are considered misers. True success lies in working with Krishna consciousness, which transcends the cycle of birth and death. All actions should be done for the satisfaction of Krishna. Misers, who accumulate wealth but do not use it for Krishna's service, are unfortunate. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that engaging in devotional service purifies one's life and frees them from the continuous cycle of action and reaction. Arjuna is advised to act in Krishna consciousness, which is the purifying process of action's results. Liberated beings dwell in a realm free from material miseries, known as Vaikuntha. The ignorant, unaware of life's challenges, strive for happiness through fruitive actions, not realizing that all material bodies bring inevitable suffering. Those who recognize their eternal servitude to the Lord and engage in devotional service qualify for Vaikuntha, where there's no misery or influence of time and death. Understanding one's position as a servant of the Lord and serving accordingly leads to eligibility for Vaikuntha. Devotional service, also known as Karma Yoga or Buddha Yoga, makes one indifferent to ritualistic activities. When intelligence surpasses the delusion, indifference to worldly matters arises. Devotees exemplify this indifference, as their devotion makes rituals unnecessary. Davendrapa expressed his indifference to traditional rituals, focusing on remembering Krishna. For those in Krishna consciousness, Vedic rites become secondary. Neophytes may find rituals essential, but for those immersed in devotion, perfection is attained, rendering these rituals unnecessary. Those in Krishna consciousness surpass the limited scope of the Vedas and Upanishads, recognizing the ultimate purpose, reaching Krishna. When your mind is undisturbed by complex Vedic language and stays focused on self-realization, you attain divine consciousness. Being in Sandhi means fully realizing Ka consciousness, understanding Brahmin, Paramtam, and Bhagavan. The pinnacle of self-realization is recognizing oneself as an eternal servant of Ka, with the sole duty of acting in Ka consciousness. A Ka-conscious person should not be swayed by flowery Vedic language or engage in activities for heavenly rewards. In Ka consciousness, direct communion with Ka reveals all necessary directions. Following Ka's orders or the spiritual masters leads to conclusive knowledge and successful actions. Arjuna inquires about the symptoms of one absorbed in transcendence. A Ka-conscious person's nature reflects in speech, behavior, and thoughts. Their speech primarily revolves around Ka and related matters. The Supreme Lord describes pure transcendental consciousness as giving up desires for material sense gratification. When the mind finds satisfaction in the self, devoid of concocted desires, one enters pure transcendental consciousness. Engaging in Ka consciousness naturally diminishes material desires, allowing the soul to remain content as the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, free from petty materialistic cravings. A muni is someone who thinks a lot without reaching clear conclusions. Each person sees things differently, and a true muni stands out by having a unique perspective. However, a sthita dhr muni, as mentioned here, is different. This special kind of thinker is always in Ka consciousness, having moved past regular speculation. They're steady, undisturbed by life's difficulties, seeing them as the Lord's mercy. In happy times, they credit the Lord, feeling unworthy of the joy. Their happiness comes from serving the Lord actively, without being swayed by success or failure. Fully Ka-conscious people have all the good qualities of great sages. They don't let material things affect them, remaining firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. This puts them in a perfect state called Samdhi. A yogi, devotee, or self-realized soul controls their senses, much like a tortoise pulls its limbs inside its shell. Unlike most people, who follow their senses, a yogi has a plan. The senses, like venomous serpents, want to act without restrictions. But a yogi must control them, much like a snake charmer. Following the do's and don'ts, avoiding excessive sense enjoyment, is vital for staying firmly in Ka consciousness. The tortoise is an excellent example. It can withdraw its senses and use them only for specific purposes. Arjuna is encouraged to use his senses for the Lord's service, not personal satisfaction, following the tortoise's example. The embodied soul might try to restrict sense enjoyment, but the taste for it lingers. However, by experiencing a higher taste, one can fix their consciousness. Restricting sense enjoyment through rules is like limiting certain foods for a sick person. Such restrictions may not be enjoyable, but the desire for sense enjoyment doesn't disappear. This is why spiritual practices are suggested for those with less understanding. But once someone tastes the beauty of Lord Krishna through advancing in Krishna consciousness, the attraction to material things diminishes. The senses are so powerful that even great sages, philosophers, and yogis struggle to control them. However, those fully Krishna-conscious are not disturbed by material attractions. Practical examples are shared, like the story of Imunkriya, who found material enjoyment distasteful once his mind was engaged in Krishna's service. Similarly, the senses should be engaged in Krishna, making material engagements lose their appeal. When someone focuses on the objects of the senses without Krishna consciousness, attachment and lust arise. These desires lead to anger. In material life, even great personalities like Lord Shiva can be influenced by the allure of the senses. The only way to escape this cycle is to embrace Krishna consciousness. Lord Shiva, in deep meditation, succumbed to sense pleasure when provoked by Parvati. Similarly, Haridasa Thakura, a devoted young soul, resisted the temptation of Mayadevi due to his unwavering devotion to Krishna. A sincere devotee shuns material enjoyment, finding higher taste in spiritual pleasures with the Lord. From anger comes delusion, leading to confusion in memory. When memory falters, intelligence is lost, causing a fall back into material existence. The practical advice is to develop Krishna consciousness. A Krishna-conscious person understands that everything can be used in the service of the Lord. Unlike impersonalists who avoid material objects, devotees spiritualize everything by offering it to Krishna, avoiding the pitfalls of material consciousness. A person truly free from attachment and aversion, regulating their senses through Krishna consciousness, receives the complete mercy of the Lord. Such a person is on the sensual plane but is not attached to sensual activities. Their actions are directed only for Krishna's satisfaction, making them transcendental to attachment and detachment. This consciousness is a causeless mercy of the Lord, achievable despite being on the sensual platform. In this state, the devotee finds relief from all miseries, and their mind becomes serene and steady. A person without a connection to the Supreme, in Krishna consciousness, lacks transcendental intelligence and a steady mind. Peace is impossible without these qualities, and without peace, there can be no real happiness. Only when one realizes that Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer, the owner of everything, and the true friend of all living beings, can genuine peace be attained. Without a relationship with Krishna, there is no ultimate goal for the mind, leading to disturbance. True peace is self-manifested in Krishna consciousness. Just as a strong wind can sweep away a boat, even one wandering sense focusing on gratification can distract a person from the path of spiritual progress. Engaging all senses in the service of the Lord is the key to controlling the mind. Restraining the senses from their objects indicates steady intelligence. Sense control is achieved through Krishna consciousness, not by human effort. The comparison is made to curbing enemies with superior force. Understanding that only Krishna consciousness establishes true intelligence, one becomes a suitable candidate for liberation. The analogy of day and night is used to describe two types of intelligent people. Materially absorbed individuals, driven by sense gratification, are asleep in the night of ignorance. In contrast, the introspective sage, focused on self-realization, remains awake in the midst of materialistic pursuits. The sage finds pleasure in spiritual advancement, while those immersed in material activities dream of fleeting pleasures, experiencing both happiness and distress. The introspective sage remains indifferent to these material fluctuations, proceeding with self-realization undisturbed by external reactions. A person who remains undisturbed by the continuous flow of desires, which enter the mind like rivers into the ocean, always filled yet always calm, can truly attain peace. Such tranquility is not achieved by those who strive to fulfill these desires. The ocean, despite being constantly filled, maintains its serenity, much like a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one possesses a material body, the demands for sensory pleasures persist. However, a devotee is untroubled by these desires due to their fulfillment in Krishna consciousness. Like the ocean, a Krishna-conscious individual is self-sufficient and unaffected by desires for material enjoyment. Although desires may approach them like rivers flowing into the ocean, they remain steadfast, enjoying complete peace. This is the hallmark of a Krishna-conscious person, one who, though desires may be present, has lost all inclination for material sense gratification. Fruitive workers, those seeking salvation, and even yogis aspiring for mystic powers remain unhappy due to unfulfilled desires. In contrast, Krishna-conscious individuals find happiness in the service of the Lord, devoid of material desires or a wish for liberation. True peace is attained by those who have renounced desires for sense gratification, given up a false sense of ownership, and eliminated false ego. To become desireless doesn't mean to forsake all desires but, rather, to desire for Krishna consciousness. It involves understanding one's eternal position as the servitor of Krishna, relinquishing false identifications with the material body, and acknowledging Krishna's proprietorship over everything. Real desirelessness is a genuine yearning for the satisfaction of Krishna, not an artificial attempt to eradicate desires. Arjuna, for example, fought not for personal satisfaction but because Krishna desired it. This illustrates that true desirelessness is working for the satisfaction of Krishna. A desireless person, in this context, recognizes that everything belongs to Krishna, avoiding false claims of ownership. This transcendental knowledge is based on self-realization, understanding that every living entity is an eternal part and parcel of Krishna in spiritual identity. This awareness forms the foundation of real peace. Living a spiritual and godly life is the key to avoiding confusion and finding peace, and it enables one to enter the kingdom of God even at the time of death. Achieving Krishna consciousness or divine life is a matter of understanding and acceptance. Some people attain this state instantly, like King Kapvanga, who surrendered to Krishna just before his death. Nirvana, often considered void in Buddhist philosophy, is described differently in Bhagavad Gita. Life truly begins after this materialistic one, and those who are spiritually advanced understand that there is another life beyond. For those engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, there is no difference between the kingdom of God and devotional service. In the material world, there are activities for sense gratification, while in the spiritual world, there are activities of Krishna consciousness. Attaining Krishna consciousness during this life means immediate access to Brahman, and those situated in Krishna consciousness have already entered the kingdom of God. Brahman is the opposite of matter, and being in a state of Brahman means being liberated from material bondage. Devotional service is seen in Bhagavad Gita as the liberated stage, surpassing both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. This chapter concludes the contents of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which covers the topics of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga.